The arrival of the weapon. The war had ended. The cities were quiet, but not at peace. People feared the silence. The government said the enemies were gone, but the people knew better. Shadows still moved beyond the star's dot at a small outpost on the edge of the colony zone. A young man named Dan worked alone. His job was simple: watch the skies and report anything strange. Nothing ever happened there. Until one morning, the sky tore open. A bright light crashed into the field near the station. Dan grabbed his scanner and ran outside. Smoke rose from a crater. He moved slowly, unsure if it was a ship or a bomb. Then he saw her dot. She stood in the center of the wreckage, not a scratch on her. Her hair was short and silver. Her skin looked smooth like glass, but warm like flesh. Her eyes were glowing faint blue, scanning everything. She looked straight at him. Dot. Dan stopped. "Who are you?" he asked. Dot. She stepped forward. "I am called Mira," she said. Her voice was calm but powerful. "I was made for one purpose: to protect you." Dan blinked. "Protect me?" "Yes," she said. "Your name is Dan. You were marked as the primary. My orders are clear. I am to keep you alive, no matter what." Dan's hands shook. He had never seen anything like her. She looked human, but everything about her was too perfect. Too strong. Too quiet. "Are you a robot?" "No," she said. "I am a hybrid system, biological and machine. You may call me a living weapon." Anne stepped back. "Weapon? Why me? I'm nobody." "That is incorrect," she replied. "Your life matters to future outcomes. They don't know why yet. But I was built for this, to be your shield and your sword." The words chilled him. He couldn't speak. Mira tilted her head. "You are frightened. That is normal. I will keep my distance if it helps." Dan nodded slowly. "Okay, just tell me who sent you." Myra looked toward the sky. "The project was hidden. They feared what I might become. But I broke out when I detected danger to you. Someone is coming. Enemies that shouldn't exist. And they know your name." Dan frowned. "Why would enemies care about me?" Myra's face was unreadable. "Because you are not as simple as you believe." He shook his head. "You've got the wrong guy." But Myra stepped forward and gently touched his arm. Her touch was soft warm. "I know your heartbeat, Dan. I know the sound of your breath. I know your voice. I was made with your image in my core memory. You are the one I must protect. I feel pain when you're hurt. I feel calm when you are safe." Dan couldn't breathe for a second. This weapon, this woman. She didn't speak. Like a soldier, she sounded more like someone who cared. Before he could ask more, a warning flashed on his scanner. Unknown ships entering the system, not human, and heading straight for him. Myra turned toward the horizon. "They are coming faster than I expected. I will handle them. Stay behind me." "Wait, what do you mean by handle?" Myra's voice turned cold. "Eliminate, protect, survive. That is my program. And also my choice." Dan's eyes widened. "You have free will?" Mira gave a tiny smile. "For you, yes." In the distance, the sky started to burn. Alien craft broke through the clouds, and the air trembled. Dan ducked behind a bunker wall, still trying to process everything. But Mira stood calmly, eyes glowing brighter now, as if the war itself had returned inside her. And yet, even as her body shifted into battle form, she turned once more to look at him. "I was made to protect you, but I want to. That is the difference." Then she rose into the sky like a star igniting fire, leaving only silence and a stunned human behind. The first battle Don crouched behind the concrete wall, heart pounding. He could still hear the roar of engines above. The alien ships had arrived. He had never seen their kind before. Long, sharp, dark like knives made of smoke. They flew in a triangle, scanning for life, and Mira had flown straight into them. He peeked over the edge and saw her in the sky, glowing like a comet. Her body was shifting, metal plates forming across her arms and back. Wings of energy flared behind her, but she didn't carry weapons. She was the weapon one of the alien ships fired. A burning red blast cut through the sky. It should have hit her, but she twisted mid-air and dodged like it was nothing. Then she raised her arm and fired a thin beam of light. The beam passed through the nearest ship, and it exploded silently, breaking into 100 pieces. Dan's mouth dropped open. She wasn't fighting like a soldier. She moved like a dancer, each movement sharp and perfect, as if she'd practiced it all her life. The second ship came in fast. It tried to flank her, firing smaller projectiles. Myra zipped around it, drawing its attention away from the bunker. She let it chase her, leading it up into the clouds, then vanished for a second. Dan stared at the radar screen inside the bunker. The blip of Myra's signal disappeared, then reappeared inside the enemy ship. A moment later, that ship fell. From the sky like a broken toy dot, she had boarded it. The last alien ship hesitated. Dan could tell from its sudden stop in the air. Maybe it realized this wasn't a normal human. Maybe it sensed fear. Mira didn't give it time to escape. She dropped from the clouds like a meteor, smashing into it from above. The sky cracked with the force. The enemy craft spun, caught fire, and crashed into the hills beyond Dot. It was over in less than 2 minutes. Dan stood slowly. The world was quiet again. Smoke curled in the distance. Sparks lit the sky like fading stars. Then Mira landed softly in front of him. Her armor melted away into her skin. Her silver hair settled back into place. She had no wounds, just a faint glow in her. Eyes and a calm face. Dan stepped out, stunned. You just took out 3 alien warships. Alone. She nodded once. Yes, how? I was designed to adapt to threats, she said. And I studied your enemy before arrival. They were not prepared for me. Dan shook his head. That was unreal. I am glad you are unharmed, she said gently. Your safety is all that matters. Dan paused. Why me, though? Why not protect someone important? A leader, a soldier. Myra looked down. They tried that before. It didn't work. The bond was never real. But for me, I was grown and programmed with one target, you. Not because of your rank, but because of your soul. Dan blinked. My soul? She nodded. Your kindness, your choices, the creators tested many. Only you were compatible with me. Emotionally, mentally. I was built to feel, not just fight. Dan's voice lowered. So, you can feel things? Like a person? Mira smiled faintly. I feel fear when I see you bleed. I feel calm when I hear your laugh. And when I look at you, I feel something I do not yet understand. Dan's heart thudded again. Not from fear this time. From something warm. Suddenly, a second alert beeped on the screen. A larger ship had entered orbit. This one was massive 20 times the size of the others. It didn't hide. It wanted to be seen. Dan turned to Myra. That's not a scout. That's a command ship. Myra's glow dimmed slightly. Yes, and it carries a full attack force. I can't fight them all. Not without risk to you. Then what do we do? She looked at him. We run. Dan hesitated. You said you would never leave me. I won't, she said. I'll stay by your side. But we must move. The enemy knows you're alive. They want to erase you. And they will burn every colony to find you. Don clenched his fists. Then let's not hide. Let's make a plan. Myra tilted her head. You're not afraid anymore. Dan looked her in the eyes. I'm still afraid, but you're worth trusting. And if I really matter somehow, I want to know why. She stepped closer. Then I will protect you with everything I am. As the sky darkened again with the shadow of the mothership, Dan and Mira packed supplies and prepared to disappear into the wild lands. The living weapon had found her reason, and the man she was built for had just taken his first step toward becoming more than he ever believed. On the run, Dan and Mira moved fast through the forest beyond the outpost. The trees were tall and dark, their branches like sharp fingers. Above them, thick fog rolled in from the hills, hiding the stars. Myra led the way. She didn't stumble, didn't slow. Her steps were always quiet, like she was floating. Dan followed close behind, trying to keep up. He wasn't built like her. He was just human. He could feel his legs ache already. After hours of walking, they found a small cave by the river. Mira scanned the area. Clear. No life signs nearby. This will do for the night. Dan dropped his bag and sat on a rock. His breath came in gasps. I can't believe how fast you move. I adjust to your pace, Myra replied softly. If I went full speed, I would have lost you in minutes. Dan gave a tired smile. Thanks for not leaving me behind. I never will, she said, sitting across from him. Her glow had faded now. Only a soft light remained in her eyes. Dan looked at her carefully. Do you need to rest? Myra shook her head. My systems recharge while I'm still, but I do not sleep. He leaned back against the cave wall. I guess I should get some rest then. But I have too many questions. You may ask. Dan looked at her. How long have you known about me? Since before I woke, Myra replied. I was created in a secret facility, grown in stages. I was connected to a database. Your image, your voice, your life patterns were fed into my mind. I dreamed of your world before I ever saw it. Dan swallowed. That sounds intense. I accepted it, she said simply. I knew my purpose. He paused. But what if I don't want to be protected? What if I want to fight too? Myra tilted her head slightly. That would be your right. I will not stop you, but I will always shield you if danger comes. Asterisk Dan smiled a little. You're not just a protector, are you? I do not know what I am, she answered, looking down. Sometimes I feel like a soldier, sometimes a shadow, but with you, I feel like something more. Dan reached for his pack and pulled out a ration bar. He broke it in half and handed Papiste to her. Can you even eat this? She looked at it curiously. Yes, my systems can break it down for energy, but I don't require it. Still, Dan said, it's better when you share food. That's something humans do. Myra took the piece gently. Her fingers brushed his. A strange warmth passed between them, soft, quiet, unexpected. She took a bite. It's dry, Dan laughed. Welcome to human food. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the night was full of whispers whined through trees, a distant animal's cry. But inside the cave, it was peaceful, until Mira turned her head sharply. Dan sat up. What is it? Scouts, she said. Small ones, machines. They're searching for us. Dan's heart raced. How long do we have? Minutes, Mira replied. They won't detect us unless they're close. We need to stay hidden. I'll cover the entrance with thermal blocking mesh. She pulled a thin sheet from her arm tech that shimmered like glass and placed it over the cave mouth. Then she sat beside Dan again, closer this time. He looked at her, confused. You're not going to fight them? No, she said. Not unless I must. If I act now, the larger ship will know where we are. Dan nodded. Smart. A few minutes passed. The buzz of small machines moved through the air outside. Mira held Dan's hand gently, pressing a finger to his lips silent. Still, Dan didn't move. He could feel her warmth beside him. Her body was built for battle, but her presence no. It felt like safety. The buzzing faded. They're gone, Myra said quietly. For now. Dan let out a breath. That was close. She turned to him. Dan, if anything happens, you must run, even if I fall. He shook his head. Don't say that. You must promise me. I'm not leaving you. Myra looked into his eyes. Then I'll never fall. Dan felt his chest tighten, not from fear, but from something else. Something growing inside him. Something he never thought he'd feel for someone not entirely human. He didn't know what to call it. But when Mira leaned her head gently on his shoulder and whispered, I'm glad I was made for you, he understood. This wasn't just about protection, it was about connection. The memory inside her, the next morning, the forest was quiet. Dan opened his eyes and found Mira sitting at the cave entrance, watching the trees. Her back was straight, her expression calm. But something about her felt heavy. He sat up and stretched. Did you stay awake all night? I do not need sleep, Mira said. I listened to the world around us. No scouts nearby, for now. Dan stood and walked to her side. The sun was rising through the mist, golden and soft. It painted her silver hair with a warm glow. You were deep in thought, he said. Was remembering, Myra replied. Dan blinked. You have memories? Yes, she said. Not like yours, not full lives, but pieces. Stored data, simulations of what love looks like, what loss feels like. My creators believed those memories would make me better at protecting, more human. Dan sat beside her. And did it help? She didn't answer right away. Then she looked at him and said, It made me wonder what is real and what is not. Am I truly feeling something? Or just following code written long ago? Dan nodded slowly. That's a heavy question. She looked away. Sometimes I see images of you, but not here. In different places. Holding me, crying, laughing. I do not know if they're dreams or training files. Anne's voice was soft. Maybe it doesn't matter. What matters is what you choose now. Myra turned to him again. And I choose you. Every moment, every path. That choice feels more real than anything I was given. Anne felt his throat tighten. He had never seen anyone human or otherwise look so certain. And yet, behind her calm face, he could sense something fragile, like she was afraid to lose what they had just begun to build. I trust you, he said quietly. Not because you were made to protect me, but because you care. Her eyes widened slightly. The glow inside them shimmered softer. You believe. That I do. They sat in silence again, watching the sunrise. Birds chirped. Water flowed nearby. For a moment, it felt like a normal morning. Like they weren't being hunted. Then Myra stood. We need to move. The mothership is tracking. Ground patterns. If we stay too long in one place, they will find us. Dan gathered his bag. Where do we go now? There's an old research station 5 kilometers east, she said. Hidden underground. I can access satellite systems there. Maybe learn why they're after you. Still think I'm important to the future? Yes, Myra said, but I no longer care why. I just want to keep you alive. They moved through the forest again, this time Mira holding Dan's hand when the path got steep. She moved carefully now, matching his steps exactly. Dan noticed her eyes scanning constantly, always alert. But now, between the quiet moments, she asked questions. What is your favorite season? She asked, have you ever seen snow? Dan smiled. I grew up on a warm planet. I saw snow once when I was 10. Made a snowball. Got sick for a week. Worth it. Mira laughed soft and surprised. I have files on snow. I wish to touch it one day. He grinned. I'll show you. One day, when we're not running. Her smile faded slightly, but the hope in her eyes stayed. When they reached the station, it was half buried in vines and dirt. Mira swept her hand across the door, and a scanner lit up. The system recognized her instantly. The doors hissed open. Inside, the station was cold and dusty. Broken screens flickered, and old machines hummed faintly. Myra moved quickly to the main console and connected a data wire from her wrist. Dan watched her eyes glow brighter. You okay? Searching, decrypting. She whispered. Minutes passed. Then she froze. What is it? Dan asked. She turned to him, eyes wide. They're not just after you. You were part of the project. Dan stepped back. What? You were chosen not only to be protected, she said, but because your DNA, your brain patterns, they were used to shape my emotions. You're the origin. Dan's breath caught. You mean I'm the reason you feel anything at all? Yes, Myra said. Without you, I wouldn't be able to love. That's why they fear us. Together. We're not a weapon. We're a new kind of life. Dan couldn't speak. He stepped forward slowly. Myra's voice dropped to a whisper. And if they can't control us, they will destroy us. Suddenly, the station lights flickered red. A signal pulsed on the screen. They found us, Myra said, standing. Outside, engines roared in the sky. And Myra, weapon or not, turned. To him, not with fear, but with something deeper. Love. Real and rising. Asterisk together. Not alone asterisk. The red lights flashed across the station walls. Warning sounds echoed through the empty halls. Above ground, the alien mothership had finally locked. Onto their location. Dan looked at Mira. What now? Mira turned toward the exit. Her eyes were glowing bright, again, no longer soft. We fight. Dan reached for her arm. You said they fear us? Why? Myra paused. Because I'm not their weapon anymore. And you're no longer the target. Together, we are something they can't control. But if we run again, we'll always be hiding. She looked him in the eyes. Then we don't run. Dan took a deep breath. His hands were shaking, but he nodded. Tell me what to do. Mira scanned the console. There's an old defense grid buried under this station. It hasn't been used in years, but I can. Try to power it. It may give us enough time. Enough time for what? To send a message, she said. To Earth, to anyone who will listen. If they know what's happening, they'll come. Dan frowned. But if you use that much power, won't they trace it? They already know where we are. It makes no difference now. Don watched her connect again to the station core. Sparks flew from the panels. The floor trembled as underground weapons slowly powered on. Lights returned to life. Old drones shook off dust and started to rise from their hidden chambers. Outside, the first alien dropships broke through the clouds. Myra stood between the station and the sky, her body now wrapped in armor. Her hands glowed with energy. Drones hovered at her back, waiting for her signal. Dan stayed close to the signal controls, sending out the emergency beacon. Message sent, he said. Now we just need to stay alive long enough for someone to hear it. Myra nodded. Then I'll make sure we do. The ground shook. The first wave had landed. Dan watched from behind as Myra walked forward, straight into the blast zone. Alien soldiers poured from the ship stall, armored, soulless. Their weapons lit the ground with fire. But Myra didn't stop. She moved faster. Then the eye could follow. Her drone spread wide, blasting the enemy lines. Her arms extended into weapons that fired bolts of light. She twisted, leaped, spun through the air, every strike precise, every blow devastating. Dan had never seen anything like it, and through it all, she never moved far from the station. She stayed close, protecting him. One alien managed to get past the fire. It ran straight toward the door where Dan stood. Before he could react, Myra was there. Her body slammed into the alien, crushing it into the wall. She turned to him, eyes burning with urgency. "Stay inside," she yelled. "You're not ready for this." "I don't care," Dan shouted. "I'm not watching you fight alone." She stared at him, really stared. For a second, everything paused. Then she said quietly, "You make me feel alive." Dan stepped forward. "And you make me brave." Another wave hit. Mira turned again to the battlefield. Her energy was fading. He could see it. The glow in her body dimmed with every strike, every block, every explosion. "Fall back," Dan called. "You can't keep this up." She gritted her teeth. "I can't stop, not until you're safe." Dan ran to her side. "Then we fight together." She hesitated, then nodded once. He picked up a pulse rifle from a fallen alien and aimed it. Myra shielded his side, blocking a blast with her own body. Sparks flew. Together, they pushed back the enemy, step by step, shot by shot. But then one of the enemy ships fired a massive beam. Straight at them. Myra turned, wrapped herself around Don, and took the full hit. The light swallowed them both. When the smoke cleared, Myra was lying still. Dan knelt beside her. No, no, no. Her body was scorched, glowing weakly. But her eyes opened. "I'm still here," she whispered, "because of you." He held her close, not caring about the fire around them. "You're not a weapon," he said. "You're real, and you're mine." Suddenly, above them another ship appeared. A human one. Earth had heard the call. More lights lit the sky. Human warships moved into orbit. Reinforcements dropped like meteors. The tide had changed. Dan looked at Mira. She smiled, weakly. "You saved me." He shook his head. "No, you saved." And now we both saved each other." She reached up, touched his face. "And maybe I was made for more than protection." "You were," Dan said. "You were made to be loved." A weapon no more. The skies were filled with fire and thunder. Earth's fleet had arrived, answering Dan's emergency call just in time. Human warships engaged the alien mothership, lighting up the atmosphere with lasers and shockwaves. Dropships full of Earth soldiers landed across the forest, but inside the clearing, Dan wasn't watching the battle. He was holding Mira in his arms, her silver skin now cracked and dim. Sparks danced along her side where the alien weapon had hit her. Her systems were struggling. "Hold on," he whispered. "Help is coming. We'll get you fixed." Myra's voice was faint. "I don't want to be fixed if it means forgetting." You won't forget," he said, pressing his forehead against hers. "I won't let you." She blinked slowly. "I feel warm, not from systems, from something else." "That's what being human feels like," Dan whispered. Around them, Earth soldiers moved in, pushing back the last of the enemy forces. Drones and fire teams secured the station. Medics rushed toward Dan and Myra. A woman in command armor knelt beside them. "We got your signal. You two held out longer than anyone else would have. We'll take her and get her repaired." Dan looked at Myra. She didn't speak. Her eyes were fixed on his face. He turned to the officer. "No experiments. No shutdowns. She's not a weapon anymore." The officer studied Myra, then nodded. "Understood. We owe her. We owe you." Myra was moved carefully onto a hoverbed. Dan held her hand the entire time. Her fingers were cold, but she squeezed his hand weakly. As the medics worked, Dan stayed close, refusing to leave. Hours passed. In the human base ship above, Mira was placed inside a repair pod. Advanced healing systems worked to restore her damaged tissues. Her neural links, her fading core. Dan stood outside the chamber, fists clenched. The commander approached. She's more than tech, isn't she? She's someone, Dan replied. She's mine. The officer looked at the pod. She's the last of her kind. That design was abandoned. Too emotional, they said. Too unstable. But now I wonder maybe she was perfect all along. Dan didn't answer. He just stared at the pod, hoping 2 days passed. Then the door too. The pod opened with a soft hiss. Myra stepped out slowly. Her hair had returned to its silver shine. Her eyes were clear. The glow inside her chest pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. She saw Dan and smiled. I remember everything, she said. Dan crossed the room in seconds, wrapping his arms around her. She stood still for a moment, surprised. Then she hugged him back. I thought I lost you, he whispered. You can't lose me, she replied. I'm not bound by orders anymore. I'm with you because I want to be. Dan pulled back just enough to see her face. So what now? The enemy's been driven off, but they might come back. Myra nodded. And when they do, I'll be ready. But this time, not as a weapon, as a partner. The commander entered again. The council wants to meet her. They're calling her a heroic AI construct. Dan shook his head. She's not a construct, Myra spoke clearly. I'm a person. The commander paused, then nodded. Then Earth welcomes you, and we'll need you both. Dan turned to Myra. You okay with that? She smiled again. I was made for war, but I choose peace, and I choose you. They walked through the base together, hand in hand. Soldiers stopped and stared. Some saluted Myra. Others just looked on in silence, unsure how to process what they were seeing, a being built to destroy, now walking beside the man she was made to protect, but chose to love. As they passed a viewing deck, Myra stopped. Outside, stars burned brightly. The earth hovered below like a blue pearl in the dark. Is that home? She asked. Dan nodded. It is, and it can be yours too. If you want it. She looked at him, then back at the stars. I want to learn how to live with you. You? Already started, Dan said, squeezing her hand. They stood there together, two lives once separated by programming and fear, now held together by choice. And far from being a weapon, Myra had become something else entirely. Someone. The choice to love. Weeks passed. Earth's military celebrated victory. The alien threat had retreated, their command ship destroyed in the town. Final battle. Across colonies, people began rebuilding, healing. But for Dan and Myra, things were just beginning. They had returned to Earth, a planet Myra had never stepped foot on. She stood barefoot on the grass, beneath a wide blue sky, her silver hair catching the wind. For the first time, no alarms rang. In her ears, no battle signals, no cold orders in her mind. Only birds, wind, and Dan's voice beside her. This is what peace looks like, he said. Myra looked around quietly. It's strange. So alive, so soft. Dan smiled. You'll get used to it. They were staying at a quiet research base in the hills, not as prisoners, but as guests. Myra was free now, fully recognized as a new life form. She had rights, choices, and still she chose to stay with Dan. Each day she asked questions. About laughter, about animals, about the smell of rain. Each answer made her more curious. And Dan couldn't stop smiling. Being with her wasn't like being with a machine. It was like learning to live all over again, with someone seeing the world for the first time. One night, as they sat under the stars, Myra turned to him. There's something I must ask. Dan looked over. Go ahead. If I was not made, For you, she said softly. Do you think we still would have found each other? Dan was quiet for a moment. I don't know, he admitted. But I know this. No matter how you were made, the choices you've made since, they're yours. And I've fallen for you, not some design. Mira looked down. Sometimes I wonder if I'm allowed to feel love. You're not just allowed, Dan said gently. You already do. She reached out and touched his hand. I want to stay here, she said, not as your protector, but as your partner. Dan smiled, lifting her hand to his chest. Then stay. The next day, Earth's leaders offered Myra a position, place in the new Defense Council. As a guardian, as a symbol of peace and strength, but she turned it down. I don't want to be a symbol, she said. I want to be me. Instead, she chose to work with researchers, helping design new systems to protect the galaxy without war. Systems that saved lives, not took them. Dan helped too. Teaching, translating, even growing food on the base grounds. Life slowed down. And in that quiet life, something deeper grew between them. One morning, Dan found Mira sitting beside a small garden she'd planted, her hands in the soil. He knelt next to her. So, weapon to gardener, huh? She smiled. I like growing things. They don't follow commands. They just become. He looked into her eyes. Like you. Her glow was soft now. Gentle. Warm. I've been thinking, Dan said. I don't know if I believe in fate, but I believe in you. In us, Myra blinked. Are you saying? I don't have a ring, he laughed, nervous. And maybe? This is too fast. But if you'll have me, I want to build something more with you. Mira was silent for a moment. Then she leaned forward and pressed her forehead to his. I was created in silence, she whispered, with metal, code, and fire. But because of you, I now know what it means to live, what it means to love. She pulled back and smiled, softly. Double quotes, yes, Dan. I choose you. Tears filled his eyes, and for once he didn't care who saw. Years later, stories were told of a living weapon who chose love over war. Of a human man who changed the galaxy, not by force, but by kindness. Of two lives once shaped by fear and fate, now walking forward hand in hand. They called her a weapon, but in truth, she had become something far greater. A protector, a partner. And forever. His. The end.